1313, and I'm going to tell you right now, this code 1313 is a code that we have to verify. Once we verify this code, we're going to know that we've been to the limits of what this cube numeric observation is supposed to be for us to see. It goes like this, very simple. All I did was add, okay? Now, the 8 and the 16 side, 8 plus 16 creates 24. And so I put the totals for the sides on the corners. But watch, 16 and 20 produces 36. 20 and 14 produces 34. And that 34 is not only the mind control number that's associated with George Herbert Walker Bush Jr., whose POTUS 43, which is 34 in reverse. But 34 is also significant for this particular block in terms of when it was placed, because it denotes the 34 years that the Georgia Guidestones have been in place since they were erected March 22, 1980. Now, okay. Now, by adding these numbers, going around, when I got to this 8 and 14, I got 22. So all the corners have been done, and let's review them. 8 and 14 is 22, 14 and 20 is 34, 16 and 20 is 36, and 8 and 16 is 24. But since those numbers can be further reduced, I do. But it's important to note the first layer of numbers in terms of what they show us. But you're not going to understand this until I complete all this, so I want to prove myself because I want to show you why these MM1313 was put here. Because you see, once someone properly decoded the cube in terms of its letters and numbers, you would have arrived at a point where you can verify your decoding. And it goes like this. Once these numbers were reduced once again, 2 and 22 reduces to 4, 24 reduces to a 6 or adds to 6, 36 adds to 9, and 34 adds to 7. Now, okay. Now that produces a set of numbers, and let's keep going, okay? Now, on this particular side, this is how I know that there are two key elements to this block that tell me that this is no scam, this is no hoax, and this was not done by pranksters who just happen to be good at stonework, masonry, precision stonework, okay? This is no prank. And let me show you the two ways. Well, this corner being positioned to the two solstice sunrises is key. I mean, you can't ignore this because it was offset from the ledge a certain amount of distance in order to be able to achieve that feat of being the crossing point for both the June 21st and the 12/21st solstice sunrises. Now, and the owl is looking in that direction, and that's what turned me on to it. But okay, now, this corner, this 2014 side that we're familiar with, and I merely colored the edges here, the corners, so that you understand this is that special corner. Okay, but the math adds to 34. That reduces to 7. But watch this. Once we had done all the math, you of course end up with a 4 and a 7, which adds to 11. And this side over here created a 9. So there is a 9, 11 shown in this corner, but this is what's even more important. The fact that it shows 22, 1022, if you recall, 10 commandments that the Guidestones represent, a message to humanity, 10 items, 10 commandments. The height from the earth to the very top of the capstone, top side of the capstone, is 19 feet 3 inches, which adds to 22. 1022 is a key date I've been talking about. But watch this. Further, adding the 4 and the 6 on this side produces a 10. And when you visually look at this, you then can see the dates 1022, 1024, the two dates one day before the solar eclipse, the one day after the solar eclipse that I've been discussing. Now I said the first item, the key was this corner, because it was put there in precision, being extended. It wasn't flush or flat, like all the other cubes. They extended it out so it had a lip and an edge that created that special point. Now, Okay, that's 1. That's no accident. Whoever did that knew what they were doing and knew why they had to do it that way and knew why they had to extend it out from the edge to that point. They knew this. Okay, so that's a key point nobody can ignore. Now here's another key point. The fact that this side is coded 911 because of the numbers. There are some of you might say, well, maybe not. Okay, but watch this. This MM, which is 1313, is a code. And having done the math correctly, it's going to show you that I've done the math correctly because I'm going to be able to produce this. Watch this. The 4 and the 9 adds to 13, and the 7 and the 6 adds to 13. 1313, produced from the proper decoding of the numbers, produces the MM 1313. This is how I know I've done it right. And this is how I know that this is the third item that cannot make this a hoax or a scam. Because 1, this corner was put there specifically for the sunrise crossings for both summer and winter solstice sunrises. That's 1. That corner, the 2014 side, produces a 911. And the side that was hidden produced the code of course, 1022, 1024, the key dates that I've been discussing. But now let's discuss the last item, which is the back side. The bottom, I should say. The bottom. Because the numbers are where they are, it wouldn't matter whether we turn this around and try to do the math over. I would still derive these numbers. The only thing that would be different would be the bottom side has its own code, JAM. Now, there are those that think that, the MM was Master Mason and that the JAM are the initials of the person who did this. No. Once again, it's a good try, but it's not going to work for Mr. Cat Eye. And let me show you why. J has a numeric value of 10. A has a value of 1. And I've always said, so don't think I'm doing this just now just to do it for the sake of doing it. I've always said, when you see a 1, it's a pause, a comma, and then it's a 1 plus something. So 10 remains pure. 1 plus the 13 adds to 14. 10, 14. Now, if you look at this, because if you add 10 and 14, you get 24. And then by taking what we have actually derived and rearranging those numbers, you can see the date 10/24/14. Now, it emphasized 10/22 because that's a key date to the ritual. 10/24 is another key date, the day after the solar eclipse of 10/23. So what we're seeing in this message was correctly ritually coded for something I've been doing and following for years. And so for anyone to tell me that this block was a scam, it was put up there by hoaxsters who just managed to, they paid some guys and they cut it out and they put it up there as a gag. Don't buy that. Because you see, let me repeat the 3 items here that are hidden that you would have to understand once you understand they're there. And I didn't make them up. I'm not stretching nothing. I'm showing you exactly what's there. This corner, this side, over here, okay, it is the 2014 side, which is, after decoding all the numbers, gives you a 911. 11 on one side, a 9 at this way gives you a 911. Now, after you do all the math and the reductions and everything, you end up with a situation where if you cross over, the 9 and 4 is 13, the 7 and 6 is 13, verifying the center code of 1313. That's how I know. If you see it on top, once you get to that number at the end, or you can produce it, you've reached the end of the decoding. So ergo, I went to the back side, the bottom side, and found that there again, 10, 14, 10 and 14 is 24. And what's it show us? 10/24/14, a date after the solar eclipse of 10/23, a date that I've already identified and that I've been discussing for quite a while. So this is not new news for me. The only thing that's news is that they went out of their way to make a public report and to show everyone of them removing it and destroying it. They destroyed it in the public eye for a reason, because you see, their ritual has been tainted. It's been exposed, uncovered, and, well, it's no longer hidden, is it? And if it's no longer hidden, then their ritual has been undermined. And so they have removed, what's been found, but there's innuendo as if they may replace, that this was not the real block, which is why it was removed, because it was unauthorized. That's what they're claiming. And that there's indications they might replace it with the real block. Now, if the real block is put back into position, please note the edge and please note the numbers, because if they change, well, then they're doing something different. They're reconstituting the ritual that's been uncovered and redoing it again in public to try to keep it secret, because that's how they do things. Now, this, I believe, was placed into position sometime around June 21st, because if the ritual protocols were meant to be adhered to, then the sunrise of June 21st would have aligned with this point on that date, as it's going to again on 12/21. And so this is not, you see, these people that are claiming this is a gag, a joke, a scam, don't buy it, don't believe it for 1 second. Now, this is the code. Like it or leave it. This is Mr. Cat Eye saying thanks for watching and considering. See you guys next time.
You're just listening to a YouTube report from Mr. Cat Eye. Pretty interesting the way he came about with that, isn't it? Some of the things that I was seeing. Absolutely seeing. Let me read you a letter. This is a letter from George Washington, yes, that's the first president of the United States, to Reverend G.W. Snyder. It was written at Mount Vernon on October the 24th, 1798. Reverend Sir, I have your favor of the 17th instant before me, and my only motive to trouble you with the receipt of this letter is to explain and correct a mistake which I perceive the hurry in which I am obliged often to write letters have led you into. It was not my intention to doubt that the doctrines of the Illuminati and principles of Jacobinism had not spread in the United States. On the contrary, no one is more truly satisfied of this fact than I am. The idea that I meant to convey was that I did not believe that the lodges of Freemasons in this country had, as societies, endeavored to propagate the diabolical tenets of the first, or pernicious principles of the latter, if they are susceptible of separation. That individuals of them may have done it, or that the founder of instrument employed to found the democratic societies of the United States may have had these objects, and actually had a separation of the people from their government in view, is too evident to be questioned. My occupations are such that but little leisure is allowed me to read newspapers or books of any kind. The reading of letters and preparing answers absorbs so much of my time, with respect, etc. About a year and a half after his death, George Washington issued a letter confirming that the doctrines of the Illuminati and principles of Jacobinism had spread. Not through Freemasonry, as some had believed, according to his letter, but instead through the Jefferson-linked Democratic Republican societies who deeply opposed the Federalists. Bet you never heard that before, have you? I mean, it's common knowledge. Everybody will tell you that George Washington was a Mason. As a matter of fact, my wife and I lived in Alexandria, Virginia for a short time, and we know exactly where the Washington Monument is. And we know about the Masonic history of that monument. Jacobinism. You heard me use that word, right? Jacob.